My name is Sarah Borgman. I'm the director of the Skoll Community and Convenings Group, and we get the esteemed privilege of working with our Skoll awardees year-round and putting on events like the Skoll World Forum. So thank you all from traveling all around the world to be in this beautiful spot with us today. The Emerging Leaders Initiative, which we are here today to listen to, together brings together the next generation of social entrepreneurs from around the globe. They are selected and supported by the Skoll Foundation and the MasterCard Foundation. Is Ariane? Where? Ariane, this is Steve. And this initiative germinated in 2014 with an idea that both institutions can bring the next generation of leaders to the forum and not only just attend, but engage in skill and leadership activities to prepare them for meetings like this in the future and all the things they're going to accomplish in their soon-to-be illustrious careers. Engaging in public speaking is part of their training, and they've been working on their talks to present to you today. These leaders are addressing a wide range of issues such as refugee support, smallholder farming, education, indigenous textiles, and others. I'm delighted to introduce them today and listen to these stories with you. So first on deck, Sonia Ben Ali from Urban Refugees. And since I have the mic, you can come up. Since I have the mic, I get to share with you a few fun facts as we've been able to get to know this year's cohort. So the song that makes her want to dance is Who Runs the World by Beyonce. The activity that makes her feel most like a kid is drawing. And if she ever had to choose a last meal, it would be veggie couscous. Yeah. So on to Sonia.
Hello, yeah. Can you hear me? Thank you so much. So my name is Sonia, and Sonia Ben Ali. My father left his country when he was very young, and he never went back there. So all my childhood, I've been hearing his stories around exile, and my father has always been very depressed as a result of this experience, and I think he never kind of overcame this uprooting journey that he has gone through. So I guess that as I grew up, it became kind of a calling for me to work for people who are forcibly displaced, who are forced into exile, like my father. And so I decided to work precisely with refugees. I worked in different countries with NGOs, UN agencies, and the more I worked, the more I realized that there was something very weird. It's that refugees have the solutions to their problems. They do have the solutions, and they put them every day in place. Let me give you an example of that. Mulki is a Somali woman. I met her in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. She sought refuge in this country because of the ongoing violence in her home country. And when she arrived in Kuala Lumpur, the capital city of Malaysia, she started living the typical life of refugees who live in cities. She didn't have the right to health, to the healthcare system. She didn't have the right to work. And she was living with the constant fear of being arrested and detained. But very quickly, Mulki started receiving the help of other Somali fellows that helped her to find a lodging, a doctor when she was sick, and even a small job in the informal economy. And so after everything she had gone through, I don't know where she found the strength to do what she did, but she decided to create a community organization, the Somali Refugee Committee, to kind of structure the self-help initiatives in her community. And organizations like the one of Mulki are providing really important support. As an example, they provide blacklist of employers that exploit refugees. This is just one example among many others. Organizations like the one of Mulki exist everywhere in the world. There's thousands of them. And at a moment when the number of refugees and displaced people is at a historically high point, And there are even estimates that say that the number of refugees is going to be multiplied by 4 in the coming 30 years. There is an urgency to rethink drastically the refugee support system so that the responses are more sustainable and cost-effective. And the solutions that the organizations like the one of Mulki are putting in place meet those criteria. They're sustainable, they're effective, cost-effective, and very adapted because created by refugees themselves. The problem is that those organizations don't have the funding, they are not supported, they are not engaged, they are invisible in this support system. So I created Urban Refugees as a response to that. We provide training and funding to refugee-led community organizations so they can strive and better support their own communities. So I invite you all in the countries where you work to identify those organizations, to support them in the ways that you can, because really, these are the change makers. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, don't give this to me. Thank you so much for sharing. Our next speaker is Peris Bosire. Shakira makes her dance, but running makes her feel like a kid. She didn't know what she wanted to be when she grew up, only that she wanted to be great. And please welcome to the stage, Peris.
Is it still morning? Good morning and good evening when we good afternoon when we cross over. People become vulnerable when they get excluded from systems and structures that are meant to serve them, such as financial systems. My name is Peris Bosire. I come from Kenya and I'm the CEO and co-founder of FarmDrive, a company that I've been running for the last 5 years, providing credit and financial services to smallholder farmers who are excluded from getting finance from formal systems such as banks. When I was growing up, my mother was a farmer then. She's now both a farmer and a teacher. She took me to a boarding school in my village that I loved, and I had better prospects there because I could access better education, I could access textbooks. But at the age of 10, we had to have a very difficult conversation about pulling me from that school because she didn't have any more money to continue paying my school fees in that school that I loved. I was one of the very few lucky girls and kids in my village to be in that boarding school because most of the parents could not afford to take their kids to that school, and our school fees was about $200 per annum. Luckily, 2 months later, she got an offer to become, she just finished college and she got an offer to become a primary school teacher in the same school. And that allowed her to be able to access credit from a bank, which she used to pay my school. And I stayed in that school. I passed with flying colors, went to good high schools and university. I'm now doing what I do. But on the other hand, the kids, the girls, the boys that I grew up with, they were not able to continue their education because their parents could not afford to pay school fees for them. I don't think it's fair that people have to choose between paying school fees, paying healthcare, or having a meal. But that's the story of more than 60% of the people in Africa that work in farming. They don't have finance to invest in their businesses so that they can have income and disposable income to even pay for their social securities. The work that my company does, FarmDrive, is supporting 60% of this the working population in Africa to access the credit that they need to invest in their businesses. Only 1% of the commercial funding in Africa goes to the agriculture sector. There's a $40 billion funding gap in that sector, and no one is meeting that. Financial institutions are viewing farmers as a risk segment. But farmers are risky because they're not getting the money that they need to invest in their businesses. And this has to change. This is the work that we are doing. In just the last 1 year, we financed 21,000 smallholder farmers, and we've only spent just $500,000 to do that. This goes on to show that you don't need to turn the world upside down to make money to support vulnerable populations to support farmers to produce the food that the entire world needs. All we need is to make adjustments in how finance is flowing, private capital is flowing to where it's needed most. One thing that I've learned over the last 5 years in the work that I'm doing is we don't need to be viewing farmers as, a poverty narrative, as a risk segment. We need to look at farmers as micro businesses that are viable for investment, that need $200, that need $2,000 to improve so that they can pay for healthcare and they can pay school fees and have better prospects at life for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sekou, Dgeorges, Manubah is ambitious. If he were to have dinner with somebody, it would be Bill Gates, Michelle Obama and her husband, and Oprah. Playing soccer makes him feel like a kid, and of course, he wanted to be the best soccer player in the world. Please welcome Sekou.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think reading that all makes you guys, more excited to hear these guys talking here. My name is Sekou, Dgeorges Manubah, she said, and from Liberia. I co-founded an organization called the Monrovia Football Academy in Liberia. This is an organization that is working hard to be able to bring positive change in Liberia. So we use soccer as an incentive mechanism to educate our young children of Liberia. As you all know, Liberia struggled a lot. We had civil war a few years ago. There was a border crisis and what have you. So spending almost 85% of my life as a soccer player, I thought of how can I be a part of contribution towards the rebuilding process of our country. The lack of education, structures, and other development that need to go on. How can I make this possible for the young children of Liberia to achieve this goal? What about football academy? And I went back home, started talking to the young people of Liberia. We are our own souls of development in our country. Let's make this happen. Back in the days, people refer to us as people who play football, we were kids. But now, no, we have to make this change. So bring the kids to football and educate them. So in 2017, along the way when we started in 2017, we were nominated as the first football academy to break down gender barrier. At the moment, we have 36 girls and 56 boys within our academy. So despite we still struggle because we operate in rental facilities, but we have been able to make a lot of great things happen for the kids of Liberia. Today, our young children in Liberia are no longer thinking about teenage pregnancies or being vulnerable to drug and what have you, but they focus on how they can use our academy as a way of achieving their lives. So it has been going on like this, and a lot of great things have happened in the kids' life because of our great initiative. It has been a super challenge for me to be able to change this mentality of the young children in Liberia because they watch themselves growing up in society or environment that struggles a lot. People not telling them the right things because of the high rate of poverty. But we at Monrovia Football Academy have been able to let the kids know that your way to success or to a future is being educated. So I work a lot, and I hope you guys can join or make the dream a success for children in Liberia.
Ritah Namwiza feels like a kid when she's gardening. That actually makes me feel old, so that's kind of interesting. She would like to eat dinner with Paul Kagame, and as a last meal, whatever is for dessert. Let's welcome Ritah.
Thank you, Sarah. Can you hear me? Thanks. So I started my first business when I was 6 years old. Granted, it was about 8 heaps of sweet potato plants. And my sole customer was my mother. She never paid, but I can't remember very well. But But it taught me a very important lesson early on in life. That survival is about you being able to produce something and exchanging it for what you do not have. And that's the reality. Now, I come from Uganda, where more than half of the population is below the age of 30. What an opportunity, right? Because actually not most, but many countries are dealing with aging problems. But for such an opportunity to be harnessed, we need to make investment. We need to create jobs. Now, unfortunately, in my country, it's not possible to employ everybody that leaves school. So only about 9% of the 400,000 young men and women who graduate from institutions of higher learning can get absorbed into the formal economy. Now, you have heard the song, create jobs, start an enterprise, start a business, go out there, take on the world, you're the leaders of tomorrow and today. But starting a business is not a walk in the park. You need resources, you need networks, you need skills. And that's why I founded Collage. So what we do is we connect young producers, local innovators to the market that they need, to credit resources, to opportunities, but most importantly, we try to retool. Because imagine a scenario where you come out of university and you're a literature major. Can you run a business ably without any skills at all? You need training. Now, I know a young woman that we are working with, she's called Agnes, and she had to leave her shop because she could not raise rent. She was not competitive. She could not ably compete with her counterparts who are importing things. How do we make young people such as Agnes competitive? It's a very globalized economy out there. And we need to make sure that young people, young innovators, young creators can be able to thrive, put food on the table for themselves and for those that they love. After all, aren't all great economies relying on such small producers and innovators and creators? Thank you very much.
That's okay. I'm actually going to put this down here. Navalayo Osembo would like to have dinner with LeBron James. Who else would like to have dinner with LeBron James? Jean. Climbing trees makes her feel like a kid. And when you were growing up, you thought you would be a lawyer. Please welcome Navalayo to the stage.
We live in a world where men control the tools of power, be it economic, social, political, cultural. And although women participate in different facets of life, men control the keys to the real power. Whenever I meet new people, the most frequent question I get, especially from young ladies in Africa, is, how did you get to where you are? And when they ask me this question, it made me really ponder a lot. They ask me this question because I am an entrepreneur, I am a wife, I am a mother. I am the first Black woman to run a running shoe company, and my company, Enda, is the first of its kind in Kenya and in Africa. We make professional running shoes with Kenyan athletes. By making these shoes in Kenya, we not only create jobs, we also add the skills of workers and help them earn better wages. We also invest in community so that as we grow, the community around us grows too. And we've also found that by creating demand for a local supply chain, the supply chain has also developed. In short, we are bringing back to Kenya the benefits of the global running industry. The fact that so many young women always ask me how I got to where I am is tragic. And even more tragic is that we live in a world where they find it surprising when I tell them my answer. And my answer is, I got to where I am because I am a free woman in an oppressive world. And I am a free woman because my father was extremely instrumental in giving me the same equal opportunities that my brothers had. And for context, when I was about 12, one of my cousins was married off. And the fact that this happened, despite it being illegal and it was accepted, means that it could have been me. There's no guarantee that it couldn't have been me. So what can we do to make a change? How can we accelerate possibilities to the extent where young women are able to grow businesses and make lasting impact? I have two suggestions. One, we must change how we think. And by changing how we think, I mean that we must create a world in which women thrive. And a world in which women thrive is a world in which women can control the tools of power as well. And second, in the words of Edgar Villanueva in yesterday's plenary opening, we must decolonize investment and philanthropy. Changing the way we think about women means changing how we think about power. And in Africa, especially where I come from, the concept of power is about questioning, and we don't question. One of my friends in high school was expelled because he dared to ask a teacher something, and that was seen as being disobedient. In our relationships and marriages, we don't ask questions because asking a man is basically being rude and often leads to domestic violence. We have essentially created a culture where asking why is met with punishment, whereas out there in the world, people are asking questions that very question of why is leading to various possibilities. Why can't a car drive itself? Why can't Kenya, with all her might in reputation in running, create running shoes? And lastly, decolonizing philanthropy means we need, philanthropy and investments mean when we go to indigenous countries, and by indigenous I mean like countries that are not yours, and you're looking to invest in local businesses because they have survived. And by virtue of them surviving, it means they are resilient. And resilience means lasting impact. Before I get off the stage, Enda is basically, we've just launched our recent second pair of running shoes on Kickstarter, an online crowdfunding platform. So if you want to support us, get on Kickstarter and support us. Thank you.
Are you wearing those shoes right now? You have to show them off. Do a little circle. Yeah. Shantanu Pathak would like to have dinner with Ratan Tata and his father. Is that at the same time, given the time periods? You wish. Tonight's going to be a good night, makes him want to dance. And for his last dinner, it's any meal with his partner. Please welcome Shantanu.
Thank you. Very good afternoon to everyone. I'm Shantanu Pathak from Mumbai, India. 5 years back, one of my friend who is doctor, her sister was pregnant and she was in the remotest village. Because she was doctor, she could identify that she is in high risk. But she was teleconsulting from Mumbai and asking her, to follow certain practices. But when labor started, because of the complicated pregnancy, none of the close-by hospital or facility was accepting her for admission. She was taken 200 kilometers away from a village to a city and was admitted. She almost lost her life. She was lucky to have a doctor sister. However, not 30 million pregnancies every year in India do have this facility. What further struck me, every 5 minutes, a pregnant woman die in India due to a preventable cause. Now, this is something really urgent, and that's what led me to think to leave my job, come back to India, and start something which will make a value. When I came back, I started learning the system, and what I realized, it's a demand-supply issue. We have so much focus on supply, we didn't realize that we need to further strengthen it in more smarter way for the needs of people. But at the same time, we have to educate, engage, as well as navigate pregnant women and families to demand the quality care that they deserve. And to balance that, we launched CareNx, a company which created a platform called Care Mother, a mobile pregnancy care solution that offers doorstep pregnancy care for the women with the help of community health workers. we realized that personalized input is equally important. We can identify high-risk pregnancy at very early stage, and that can save a lot of complications. It is also important that we engage with pregnant women at early stage, educate them, and we created personalized inputs based upon their clinical factors, age, and family and local conditions, which suits to them. What I realized when we equip these health workers with smarter tools and technology, sometimes you never know what way they can be used. I'll tell you a story. In one of the remote village, a community health worker used our solution to monitor the fetal heart conditions, and first time in their life, the mother, the pregnant women and mother-in-law listen the heart sound. Now for us, it is an assumed thing, but imagine it was a first time and it was a magical moment for them. Now this is what created a condition. Next time they asked, when is our visit? And not just two of them, but complete family members, including father-in-law, kids, all of them gathered and listened to the fetal heart sound. It got viral in the village and that into the society. What we realized that sometimes we don't know, and we got to know about this after 2 months. We realized we need to champion these people. We need to champion the organizations who are supporting and provide the technology to all these people. So we create champions, we enable them to engage with government, run a public-private partnership model. We also offer this technology to private hospitals who are willing to take the care at home. So equally that we reach and engage these women is important. I lost my father when I was 13. And what I realized is the value of life. It's really important. So today, as on date, we served 30,000 pregnancies, and we have already a requirement of 100,000 pregnancies who require care from our partners. So if life matters to us, then pregnancy equally matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last speaker of the day, and then I'm going to ask all the speakers to come up and take questions and answers from you. Our last speaker Zinah, Saleh, would like to dine with the Backstreet Boys. Backstreet Boys makes her want to dance. When she feels like a kid, she's collecting photos of the Backstreet Boys. Notice the pattern. And she wanted to be a singer when she grew up because she had a band already called the Backstreet Girls. Let's bring up Zinah.
Hello, everyone. I am Zinah Saleh. I am from a country that has over 2.5 million of widowed women and orphan children. I am the founder of Ishtar Handmade Soap, which is a small business that aims to hire women in need in Iraq. I'm 30 years old, and my generation is called Generation of War because 2 wars happened and 1 economic sanction on Iraq that's made most of Iraqi people live in poverty. During the war, 2003, my father was very happy. He said, we will get rid of poverty. We will be a copy of America. And he pointed at a car. He said, we will have a car just like that. But this did not happen. Actually, the war, 2003, the first day the American army entered Iraq, the terrorism started. We were going to school during the worst time where you could be killed because you are a student. I had to cry and say goodbye to many of my friends because at the age of 14 and 15, they were forced to get married and leave school. I was lucky enough to finish school and college, and I started to volunteer after college. I was going to poor areas where poor families are living, and seeing hundreds of families, I noticed one thing in common. In each family, the mother is always uneducated. She was married at a very young age, 14. And most of them are, married at a young age and did not finish school. Most of them are widowed or divorced. And one story that really hit me was a 16-year-old girl who is divorced at 16 years old and had a child who had a health issue. And I saw my older friends in her eyes. This made me want to start my business, Ishtar Handmade Soap, because I wanted to help all women who is like her. I started collecting women who are living in poverty inside our soap making business, teaching them how to make soaps. Then we give them all raw materials they need to start making their products, and we sell them inside our shops. Many people ask me in Iraq, why would you help only women? Why not men? Because men also suffered from war and poverty. I say because women are half of the community and they raise the other half. So if you want to empower a woman, you will also empower her family. When you empower her family, you empower her community. So if you want to stop child marriage, if you want to develop a country, you should start with the women who live in it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can we have all the speakers up to the stage? Be thinking of questions for these wonderful emerging leaders. Maybe you should stand in the order in which you spoke so people remember. Sure, starting from over here. Okay. Questions?
The digital financial ecosystem is presenting to women to get economic empowerment and income generating activities. Could you speak a little about the other side of the coin, you know, the blacklisting that's happening because of minimal loans that they're not able to pay, and then some get excluded from the same financial system that's supposed to work for them? Anything from your experience with FarmDrive on how to do more consumer protection?
Thank you for your question, and it's a very pertinent question in Kenya, where we have more than almost nearly 50 digital loan products that are mostly providing consumptive loans to excluded communities. I feel that what has happened over the last 10 to 15 years is we spent a lot of time thinking a lot about financial inclusion and forgot that has to go hand in hand with financial literacy. And financial literacy, these are some of the quick wins for organizations such as the central banks that are set up in the countries, the work that organizations like World Bank and IMF do. These are the quick wins for them, driving financial literacy and working with local institutions to do that. However, we need to start regulating and thinking through how we are offering digital credit in countries like Kenya and most African countries, where we are seeing a lot of amassing of private data to do that. The approach that we've taken as FarmDrive is, number one, we're not offering consumptive loans, we offer productive loans. In fact, we ensure that farmers are getting access to inputs by giving them vouchers on SMS, and they go to a local agro dealer near them and they can redeem that voucher whenever they need to get inputs. If they need to top up cash for labor, they can request that. And we have a variety of products, not just 30-day loan products. They can request for a 6-month loan. They can request to take a loan that's connected to a market. So that makes us a bit different. And we don't amass private data about these clients from their phones to give them loans. We only rely on transaction data on mobile money, of which we request permission to do that. Then from then on, we use the repayment behavior. What we are trying to do is to be more inclusive than exclusive. And for you to be inclusive, then you have to approach it from, let me accept all these populations that are excluded and start segmenting them and see who belongs where, which product fits who. But I agree with you. We need to start shifting our mindset. Financial inclusion has become a song which is leading people into more poverty, over indebtedness, and loan stacking because we are not doing it right. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Other questions? Oh, you've got one. Thanks, Whitney.
Really inspired by all of you. Thank you for what you do and strong presentations as well. My question is just what would be, and ideally everyone, I don't know if we have time, but it could be quick answers, but I'd love to hear what is the number one thing you would want or need to grow your business to the next level or your organization that you think could come from partners in this room or the overall event?
You can start at the beginning.
Do you want the real answer?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Funding. We're so much struggling with funding, at least for my organization, because we work with a population that is not recognized by the whole system, that is mainly on refugee camps, and we work precisely outside refugee camps, because this is where the majority of refugees live.
The topmost thing for me is being connected to people that get it, people that help me get the answers, than ask me questions. I spent the last 5 years asking myself questions, being asked questions, and I'm empty in terms of answers. So I need people that can help me formulate answers to what I'm working on.
Yeah, for me, funding, for sure. I think saying that I want to have a dinner with Bill Gates and Barack Obama, say it all for me. So yeah, because the kids need to grow up, and some of them are 8. I got a 6-year-old kid within the academy, so think about his future. For sure, we need funding and awareness as well, so people keep spreading the word for us and making sure that more of our academy can achieve. Thank you.
I think for us right now, it's technical support in the sense that we are still trying to streamline our strategy to be able to provide the kind of support that we need to provide. So it's mostly advisory, technical support. Thank you.
For us, running shoe industry is all about marketing. So digital advice on digital marketing, how do we get ourselves in front of the right audience? We're struggling with that.
One thing we have realized for us is we got very clear idea about where we want to go in terms of number of pregnant mother we reach and the difference that we create on every family or pregnant women. What we need from here on is now to scale ourselves. So we have reached to a certain stage. Scaling from here is something very crucial. We have technology which is universal, so taking it anywhere is not a problem. So we need strong partnerships which can help to replicate our solution in various areas, and naturally to build that resources, which comes funding, but beyond that, advisory and engagements. Thank you.
For me in Iraq, we want to open a big workshop for the women. And in my country, the cost of the workshop depends on the safe area. Like if I wanted to be in a safe area, the cost of rent is very high. Mm-hmm. So the only problem is the funding.
Hello. It's on. Yes. Thank you very much. I really loved your presentation. I'm always touched when I see young entrepreneurs like you, and the capacity of you sharing your story was amazing. I was all the time touched. So my wonder, as I'm a grown up already, getting older and older, I remember when I was so enthusiastic as you are, is about, and it makes a link with the last question about funding, because not only we have this colonizing thing, but also money is in our hand, old people. So normally I'm a shrink also, so I'm into human relationships, develops. There's a jealousy and there's a lack of trust from old people to young people. So how do you work on that? How is your experience? What's your experience in your own community to get the trust of old people, not only to fund you, but also to have the wisdom that maybe share with you, instead of having a cut between the generations that in my country from Argentina, we used to have a cut because of the dictatorship. And so young people, we had to rebuild after the dictatorship was over, So I was wondering if that's part of your efforts to work on and develop your projects, and I congratulate you all for your project.
Someone want to take a stab at that? Yeah.
I can say, at least, from our perspective, like the running industry is old in Kenya and it's very set. And a lot of the people I end up talking to are retired athletes, government people who are also quite older. And I just find that I'm the only person as looking like me in those rooms where like I'm a young woman. And one of the things that it's very difficult, that I have to admit, but it's also about showing that we are capable of executing. I feel like sometimes they have this So they feel like, maybe it's a fad that's just coming here to go and stay. So they're looking for commitment. And what we are trying to do is basically show up over and over again and say, we are here, we are not going anywhere. It doesn't matter how the history has been, and showing up. So over time, we have built that trust by executing small projects, and then we see that it's leading to trust. They're now trusting us to say, okay, maybe now you can meet this other running legend, or you can meet this other person. So it's an everyday, but from my experience, it's executing and showing that you're reliable.
To others?
Yeah. Also, opportunities like this, because then you can engage with people like you. I think most of the time I have gone to conferences, and I don't want to mention names, but you get the feeling that you're there because you're younger and people need to see you around. So true engagement, where we speak and we are listened to, we are not asked patronizing questions to gauge whether we understand what we are working on. I feel like there are several organizations that are funding these kinds of spaces, but also providing the mentorship that young entrepreneurs need, because I mean, it's not textbook material that you're just going to read. You need people to hold your hand and take you through it all.
That's right.
Yeah, to respond to that question, I want to use my own experience as a way to explain it. Like in our academy, most of the kids that we got in the academy are from very challenging environment. So in the beginning, we will go to those environments, bring those kids, and like make them understand the value of what you are there for. And, you know, with time, they get better, they develop, then people get to see them. We have done this we're almost 5 years old. So almost everybody that's seeing this now, seeing how much we are like making this change to come in the kids' life. And at some point, we have people who a bit worried in Liberia come up to say like, oh, I'm gonna bring my son and give you more than double the school fees. And I'm like, no, this is not for that. We gotta make sure the other ones who don't have access to these opportunities get to realize that they are the right people to make the change. So like I have a girl who was selling a market on her head. And my co-founder brought her to the academy, like, give this girl a go. Let's see what she does. And the mother was like, no, I don't have money. I'm like, no, it's free. All we want to see, if this kid will understand that the passion around football will educate her, definitely there's a way for her future. So these are things that we use as an evidence, or you can trust us, that we don't need the money to do the wrong thing. It's just the right thing to happen.
Right. Sonia?
Just one quick thing. One way we have found around that, because we had a lot of challenge, and especially I think when you're woman on the top of being young, it makes it super, super difficult. We engaged a lot people like you who are a bit older in our board. So you become a board member, advisory board, or the main board. It gives us credibility because you're here. You can come with me at appointments, and then the donor say, they're serious. And so it's win-win. Come join.
Whitney, how much more time do we have?
25 minutes.
Oh, fantastic.
25 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. Hello. I had the privilege of
no,
just hold a little. Okay. I had the privilege of meeting with all the emerging leaders yesterday, and you posed many questions to me. So I was wondering if there are any questions that are on your hearts, besides please give me money, that you might like to pose to us. Could you help with? Do you think I am presenting my case correctly? You know, those sorts of things were the open questions that I asked all of you yesterday, and I wondered what your thoughts were. Do you have questions for
us? I think you were volunteered.
Yes, it's a mental model. I want to re-highlight the conversation that Navalayo spoke about, how funding is distributed. One of the things that keeps coming up on the statistics on funding that's going, number one, to women, and number two, especially in Africa, funding that's going to local companies, is where are the companies? We can't find the companies. So a question that I always have for the investors is, how do you how do you look for your deal flow and pipeline? Because we are here already. This is just 15 of us in a conference that has less than 1,000 people. If you go back to Africa, if you go back to Asia, there's more. So how do you get your pipeline? Sometimes I get the feeling, and this is from conversation that I have, that there's a lot of people tend to make decisions within circles, within parties, who you know, but not all of us are going to be at those parties. Not all of us are going to be seated around those tables. So a rhetoric to you is, how are you making your decisions on your deal flow? How are you doing your due diligence? If you change that, if we expand that, then we'll no longer have the question of where the women-led companies, where the companies that are led by local founders, because they exist, they're successful. I've been running my company for 5 years. That should tell you a lot. I'm surviving. 5 years later, it means I'm doing a lot of things right. And we're working with one of the largest telcos in the country. No company has managed to go through a successful partnership, even for 1 year, with such a large telco. That should tell you a lot. But if the questions, if we're having conversations at parties, in patterns, in small circles that are exclusive, we'll always have a barrier. Yes.
I just want to build quickly on that. It's also about the expectations. Like with the refugee-led organizations we work with, they are not exactly, like they're not structured and formalized just because the refugee leaders very often haven't gone to school, but they do really amazing things. And I've seen them systematically refuse denied funding because they don't meet the criteria, and we lose such a big opportunity to change this system, not only the refugee system, but I mean the system of aid more generally towards affected populations in such a big way, just because the expectations are just not meeting the way those organizations are being managed.
Whitney, did you want to?
I was just going to say, if you have answers to these questions, let's not do them as a group, but find them after to answer, because they won't all have the same question.
Yeah. I'm sure others of you might have questions as well. Yes.
Wow. I can turn down an opportunity to ask a question. I think it all goes back to, I feel like half the time when you're reviewing calls for applications, it's like a whole long list of things, and you're thinking, good Lord, I need to have all these things in place to be able to. I guess it would be lovely to know what exactly it is that you want, because sometimes people apply and they will still get a rejection later. So maybe to some of you that put calls out there, to just understand what is it that you want from us, and how can we best tailor whatever it is that we are presenting to, so that you can tick off those boxes. Thank you.
Well, behind you.
Sorry. Okay, so I have 2 questions. I hope I'll remember because my mind is racing. The first question is in relation to how you view impact. So I find that a lot of the companies coming into Kenya, especially, they really want the bottom of the pyramid. And I always wonder, like, why, because then you have a solar company that's selling on hire purchase to the same people. And then you have another company that's selling them maybe essential goods. Then you have another company that's giving them agricultural loans. And then you have another. So it's just like a whole ecosystem that, instead of building the bottom of the pyramid, is taking away from that plate, but they don't see the collective impact of everybody focusing on the bottom of the pyramid, because you have one person who has 100 shillings and each small startup is taking like maybe 10% of that 100 shillings. And then essentially everybody's like, we are funding bottom of the pyramid. So that's one question, because I am not bottom of the pyramid. In fact, I would say running shoes are essentially a luxury product, but the impact that it creates, while we are not necessarily targeting them, we are creating jobs, and we are seeing people actually have autonomy and agency to say, I now have a job that I can spend money like this. So my question to understand is, why the bottom of the pyramid? Like, I get the whole idea of scale, but I feel like it's actually harming people at the bottom of the pyramid if we all focus our efforts on bottom of the pyramid. Yeah, I can't remember the next question.
I'll just build on that with an relevance that when we are talking about the really last mile or people at the bottom of the pyramid who really don't have money, who are really poor, making our model sustainable there by expecting them to pay can be a push, and what you were saying. So absolutely, like when we can segment and we can see that, okay, money can come from this way, so you can see returns, but same time the tolerance for the last mile, tolerance for the people who can't pay, there can be some ways of doing it, but would like to know your understanding and experiences to deal with people who really can't pay, and then understanding a model which sustains in that for that zone of people.
Okay, so I remember the other question. It was in relation to the trends in social entrepreneurship. So, for example, if you go to Nairobi, everybody's talking about mobile phones and fintech. And so I always wonder how these themes are determined. Like, it feels like it's an invisible force that says, okay, this year, this is the hottest industry and everybody's going to focus on it. And I always ask why, like why that and not anything else? And the reason why I highlight it is because I feel it's also very dangerous, because I feel like there's a hard mentality when it comes to social impact. It seems like there's someone who says, okay, fintechs are the next best thing, and everybody else is like, nope, fintech. And then the next thing is agriculture, and it always feels like there is a set criteria, and anything outside that criteria doesn't necessarily qualify. So my question is, how are they set? Who sets them? And at any point, is there a dialogue with the people who's in the target population to basically say, what do you want? Like what matters, before we come and say mobile telephones are the next best thing? Like, where is that conversation?
Zinah, did you want to? Oh, no? Okay. I think the balance of the time might be best spent actually mingling with you all, since you've now heard from these wonderful entrepreneurs what their hopes are, their dreams are, what their challenges are. So I encourage you to get to know them a little bit better. Thank you so much.